Thursday.
Chicken pot pie. Everybody's favorite.
I love Invincible, I love cooking, so let's make a chicken pot pie inspired by the show. Invincible is one of those shows that came out of nowhere for a lot of people and introduced them to how great animation can be for adults. A show filled with great heroic characters the same way we're about to fill this pie with some great ingredients, starting with some crisp and orange carrots. Chicken pot pie is one of those dishes that bring nothing but happiness and are super comforting, which is ironic because Invincible the show is incredibly brutal. But weirdly enough, since the violence is animated and there's a lot of shining moments of optimism, the show still creates a feeling of nostalgia inside me, the same way a really good pie does as well. Animation just has that magical quality to it. So yeah, we're gonna roughly chop up this carrot to get the party started. I figured we would get as much prep work out of the way early on so that I don't get overwhelmed later on trying to film and cook at the same time. Did anyone say celery time? No? Well, that's a shame, because it's time to slice up a couple stalks. To me, celery has one of the weirdest tastes of all the common vegetables. I mean, seriously, how would you describe it to someone who has never had it before somehow? It's kind of peppery, a little bitter, sort of like my ex-wife, but somehow the vegetable just works, especially in a combination with carrots and our next vegetable, sweet onions. This 3-veggie combo is called mirepoix, named after a French aristocrat who served as a chef for King Louis XV. It's usually 2 parts onion, 1 part carrot, 1 part celery, but I would be lying if I said I didn't just eyeball this prep job. The veggies are usually also diced into equally sized cubes, but since we're making a pie after all, I didn't feel like it mattered that much. If anything, I went for just a rough chop all around. I wasn't trying to stress too much over vegetables. Housing in America is unaffordable, our infrastructure is crumbling, and Taylor Swift is gonna make a cool $4 billion off her Eras tour. I mean, it's safe to say we have bigger things to worry about instead of vegetables. Isn't that right, Gravy? Moving right along, we just need to bust out some garlic because let's face it, garlic makes the world go around. Not only can it help with our fight against the growing threat of vampires, but it also enhances dishes, takes them to a new level, and generally just brings everything together in ways never before thought possible. Please, Mark, I promise I'm not lying. Stop hating your dad. He's been nothing but a good father to you. It just makes me so sad when I see kids not respecting their parents. Speaking of respect, we have been treating the early stages of this chicken pot pie creation process with a lot of attention to detail, and for that, I think we deserve a nice pat on the back. The prep work continues though, as we begin to think about the herbs that we're going to want to add in for some nice flavor near the end. I decided some fresh thyme and parsley would be the perfect ingredients to bring that earthiness that we desire. Now we can move on to the meat of choice, chicken, which is a given based off the title of this dish. So we've handled most of the initial prep work. We need to head over to the stovetop and really start working on this pie. Saying pie like that makes me feel like a true New Yorker, even though I grew up in West Virginia. With a nice splash of avocado oil, we begin the cooking process. I like to go with a Dutch oven so that I could crank the heat up high without worrying about the oil going everywhere. The downside to this choice is that I am not able to sear all of the meat at the same time, so I plan to add in 2 boneless chicken thighs at a time so that I can make sure each one gets very crispy and golden brown. The thighs are pretty thin, so it shouldn't take too long to reach the proper internal temperature. The best part about chicken thighs versus chicken breast is that it's a lot more difficult to overcook dark meat. Plus, I just feel like chicken thighs generally taste better. That's not always the case, and each have their time and place, but for a pie, I wanted as much fatty flavor as I could get. Savory is what we were looking for. With the chicken cooked and looking sexy, I can already feel my mouth watering. Plus, the kitchen smells amazing. Now that we have admired what we have accomplished, let's continue to stay motivated for the next steps ahead.
That's how you get ahead in life.
Boo! Anyways, let's introduce some butter into the existing chicken fat that we rendered out so that we can infuse our garlic into it. Within a minute or so, the garlic will transform the buttery bath into the proper tasty blend that will be perfect for our mirepoix. If you thought your kitchen was smelling great before, honey, this veggie blend cooking in fat is about to knock your socks off and make you take a week off from work because it's that powerful and frankly, delicious. I keep stirring frequently because I want all of that fat to coat the veggies before we hit them with some flaky salt to sweat out the liquid inside. That doesn't mean we want to dry them out or anything, but we do want them to soften up and become more translucent. When they have broken down to a nice level, we can throw down a good amount of white flour, which will help absorb the fat even further, and allow the sauce to thicken up and achieve that classic chicken pot pie filling. And we're going to keep stirring everything around to make sure nothing burns. and the mixture comes together nicely. Once the flour has dissolved, we can begin adding in our chicken stock, about 2 cups, which will be very loose at the beginning. As it heats up and absorbs the flour, the sauce will begin to thicken and have a really nice consistency. It's at this point we can think about adding in our herbs from earlier. They're going to give our filling a nice injection of color and earthy flavor. We aren't quite done with the greens though. We need to toss in a good amount of frozen peas, which have really grown on me over the past few years. Peas were always a food that I kind of avoided until one time I had a really good pasta that incorporated them. And then after that, it was like something clicked in my brain. At this point, I mean, come on, you can't tell me this doesn't look fantastic. What a wonderful combination of colors and creaminess. If I had 3 wishes from a genie, I would waste at least one of them, asking it to shrink me down so that I may dive into the saucy goodness and swim around. And just like that, our filling is complete, minus the meat.
Damn. Chicken pot pie night.
Speaking of the meat, I am taking a somewhat lazy route for a good reason. Now this is my personal opinion that many might not agree with, but I like my chicken to be broken down quite finely, so I'm going to use a food processor to crumble the chicken. So the chicken is going into the filling to be introduced to the rest of the mixture. They may have just met, but it appears they are going to be best friends. Make sure to taste the filling at this point to make sure that it has the proper seasoning and consistency that you want. So moving right along, let's get started on forming our pie. I'm using some buttery dough that I made last night, and I ask you to please don't be offended by my lack of baking skills. It's certainly a work in progress, but I'm giving it everything I have. We want the dough thin enough to completely cover the pie dish, with some excess, but not too thin to the point where it falls apart. It's gonna have to support our filling after all. I'm using a 9-inch pie dish, which is going to give us a pretty decently sized pie. Just repeat the same process with another round of dough so that we can cover the filling soon after. Prepping the dough has allowed the filling to cool off a good bit, which means that we're able to add it now into our pie dish. If you add it in too soon, the filling could melt through the pie dough, which would be really unfortunate after all the effort we put in. I'm going to fill it almost to the top so the filling can provide support for the top layer of the dough. As you can see, I have a good amount of excess dough, which will help bind the top and the bottom layers together and allow me to at least attempt to make a nice looking design. A small but important detail is cutting some slits in so that the pie can vent, and it also gives it that classic pie look. You can either use an egg wash or in this case a heavy cream wash to help give the pie a golden brown look and become more flaky. We just want a thin layer covering most of the pie. Alright, it's ready for the oven, so let's get it over there. Beautiful, so now we patiently wait. Just keep waiting. And we wait. Just keep waiting. Alright, screw it, let's get it out. The pie's done. It's not perfect by any means. I am by no means a baking professional. In fact, most of the time I do no baking at all. But with the way it turned out, I'm excited to get a slice going after it cools down for a little bit, and then, we'll see how it turned out. And there you have it. A beautiful and flaky chicken pot pie that would brighten anyone's day after a long fight against the forces of evil. This pie will be buttery, salty, and overall just really flipping good. Bottoms up. So buttery, so full of flavor. One of the best dishes to eat as the weather starts to get colder. I'm glad I was inspired to make this. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you liked the video, hit that like button for the algorithm. I would really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace. Thanks for feasting with me today, and please subscribe if you liked what you saw.